Alright, I'm filling the screen out and drafting here on a Friday. This will probably go a little bit longer than some of you will want, so learn that you can push these videos ahead fast, and I think you can actually make them squeak like this. Alright, so I'm going to basically go through, I've already gone through the process of setting my machine up. I'm going to go to File, New, going start to finish on the problem that is problem figure 7-57. Going to a decimal template because we're working in decimal. It doesn't make a difference whether it's decimal feet or anything else. Decimal millimeters is probably what this is. I'm going to go to model here. I go down, you see I've got all kinds of different toolbars up, so I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to keep the modify and the draw around. I'm going to turn off the layers tool. I right click on any toolbar to bring up another set of toolbars. I'm going to keep up just standard, not standard annotation. To keep up the standard, I'm going to turn off the workspaces because that's down here on the right. I've got the standard toolbar up. Eventually you'll see I'm going to turn for myself, I'm going to turn off the snaps. I'm going to turn off even the properties at this point. So I'm keeping it very clean, and what we're looking at, we've got modify on the right here, right click. We've got standard, turn off styles, we've got modify, we've got layers, we've got standard, and that's probably about it, maybe a couple more. I've gone to Ryan Kurz's layout there. It'll come like that. Ryan was dealing in 3D, so I don't want to see that. So each time I go, it's going to remember this toolbar set, so I really want to kind of get good at getting rid of them if I don't want them. And I don't see in the modeling I'm turning that off. Alright, so I started right away. You want to do a file, save as before you do anything. Save it in the H drive. Remember, you go up to your H drive in the correct spot. I am not showing you how to manage a drive, but I somewhere on here have a fall 2010, and I'll just put example figure 5 fig 7-57. That's something you'll forget to have me to do in class. I'm going to even get you in the habit of saving as an 04 drawing early so you can go back to SketchUp, those who want to. Right now you see that you've got the way this template is laid out. I don't really have it laid out that well. The current layer is now viewport. I really would rather put the current layer at view. So because I have this view toolbar there, I can make my current layer view. I think in class I made this 300 by 300. Remember, I'm going to hit line or type L space bar, and first point I'm going to tell it I don't want to begin at 0, 0 typically. I'm going to begin at 100, 100, and then I am going to hit at 300 angle 0, and for me I'll put that second angle, which we won't need, but it is a vertical angle. So zoom extends, and we see that there. I wheel out a little bit, wheel out a little bit. I can now do offset offset O for offset, and then 300. Click the thing and go there. Once again, escape, 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 Z space, E space. Zoom out a little bit, and then line, shift right click from the endpoint, shift right click from the endpoint. And if you notice, mine is acting not funny, but it's trying to grab that orthogonal line because ortho is on. Once again, you could draft from end to end, but it's more correct to go offset, T for through, grab that, shift right click, the endpoint. Now, I pointed out in an email this weekend that this is not symmetrical up and down, it's just symmetrical left to right. So now I'm just going to say O offset T for through here through the midpoint. And take that, click on it, right click. You're not looking what I see down. I'm going down to properties. I'm going to change the properties, which I'm going to have to bring in here to show you. The property is the layer. If it's white, you can pull it down. We're going to pull that property down to center line. Realistically, it's not a bad idea at this point, and to then do LT scale, and we said about 20 worked. That looks something like that. And then in fact, it's a great idea now to do this if you can. Well, take object here and just draft a little line off on the side, hitting the F8 doesn't always work with Cam Studio, so I'm going to just have to draft a little line here with ortho on. That one is the line that is object, and I can actually go to hidden now and do another L spacebar line from here to here, and I've got a center line and I've got an edge, and we're going to be able to use the magic finger to do that. So I'm trying to keep this down to 15 minutes, and so let's start with there. I'm going to start with a baseline now. Since it's not centered, I'm still going to kind of think of that as being centered. It's not completely symmetrical, but I'll go ahead once again and say now O for offset, T for through. From here, shift right click, midpoint. Now I can use the magic finger, which I don't see that was on the standard toolbar. Right click on any tool, brings up the standard toolbar. There's the magic fingers. You suck up the ink and then you cast the ink. Great tool. It's called Match Prop. Now I'm going to establish my baseline at the bottom, which is 82.55 from the center line. So I'm going to O offset 82.55. Take that down to there, and immediately I'm going to go ahead and use my magic finger to turn that into something green. So my eye starts to see that that was the very bottom, 82.55. And then top to bottom, it was 158.75. O for offset, 158.75. So that's the very top. Left and right, we really don't have much going there. To tell you the truth, we don't have much going there. So we're going to go ahead and now just establish that middle box and then the rest of the whole. So that middle box, if you think about it, it is showing you, it's kind of hard to say what it's showing, to tell you the truth, but it is showing it as being 25.4 left and right. So that would be 25.4, you'd have to divide that in half. 25 in half is 12.5 plus 0.2 more, 12.7. Offset, 12.7. Select your object here and your object here. Now that, of course, doesn't even get you the box. When I look at this, I do not see the box as being very well established, but I'm going to go with, I think, the fact that it's 40.28 left and right. And that would be one of those issues here. One of those issues that you would say, well, that's indescript. So that would be something you would put on an error layer potentially. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in a second. In other words, 40.28 is 20.14. Offset 20.14. Here and here. And those are edges. We're going to go ahead and take them and use the magic paintbrush here to pick up and then cast that ink there and there, though in effect it might not be correct. So we're going to now teach you a skill to add a new layer. You go to here, Layer Properties Manager. You go to click here and you're going to add a new, and you're going to put questions. And you might want to make that another color. That's something we haven't used in the past, perhaps cyan. And that's your questions, which means now if you kind of take this here, here, and here, you can eventually put that on something like the layer, which I did not, the layer questions there. So that typically in there, and you see when I made questions, it took what was current in my layer and applied it and whatever else. So now you get to this kind of issue of process, and you notice nothing is on here. I'm going to introduce you to a new command here, and that will be extend or trim, but I'm going to teach it very differently than most others. I'm going to teach you first break. Right click, you see break. Break is if your snaps are not on, break is a great command. You just kind of go here to there, space bar here to there, space bar here to there, space bar here to there, and then you can extend. With extend and trim, we just double click. We say, screw that, I'm not going to tell you. You push it out to where it needs to go. So we'll cover that in class, how I go about using break and why. And now we've got this kind of thing on some questions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop this video here. It's just over 10 minutes. I'm going to go up 15 minutes. I'm going to establish a couple of those holes that were also questions. So those holes out on the very edges here, which we started in class, were 212.72 divided by 2, 106.36. It's good for your brain every now and then to do this, but you have a calculator. 106.36. 106.36. I'm going to offset that here, and that, of course, was one of those holes that, in fact, were not documented in this drawing. This is a brand new book that I took this out of, and so I guess there's some calls we should make. But what I'll do now is I'll put a hole that's so tiny, I guess, that it'll stand out for us. So we want to remember that we're going to go to here, line, or center, circle, circle radius. It's asking for the center point, the intersection of there, and we'll do an intersection. We'll do a radius of 5. That's pretty small. And we're going to make sure that that stays on the questions layer. I'm going to introduce you to a new skill. You're going to left click on one of the important points, spacebar, C for copy, and then take it over to where you want it to be. Now, we're going to continue drafting now just one side of this, because in reality you don't need two sides. You want to draft one side. So there's a set of skills here that we'll talk about and highlight. One is this general set of grabbing first, then left clicking on the point that's going to be your kind of key point or translation point, and then space barring through your choices. And then very often when you get to a voice, you're going to go ahead and hit C for copy and do what you're going to do. Okay. Now that's the very start of this drawing. You want to get the rest of these kind of holes established, and then start doing some kind of, just make it as square as you can to start, and then start using fillet and the rest. What I want to show here is how important it is to differentiate based on color. Though realistically now it can get a little bit confusing. So every now and then you could decide, even my questions, I could change the color of that layer. Once again, you go to the layer, you can go to questions and change that to be green. So even though they're green, and you can go ahead and change in line type, change that to be continuous. And so even though it's green, it still has questions, and so later you'll be able to pull that out. And so right now we have established, I believe, the top and the bottom. Last thing I'm going to show you that's really an important one is the command LI for list. You click on the item, spacebar, and you get that list 158.75, and I'm doing that to establish that in fact we do have this. All right, one thing I got to be really clear about is never exceeding 15 minutes on YouTube. This is not done on the most compact recorder. This is being done on a shareware, something you have access to at home, something called Cam Studio. Get yourself a mic, make your own notes, join the new economy. Thanks for listening. We'll pick this up from at home.